right, I'm going to call our June 12th regular Macon County Board of Commissioners meeting to order, and I would like to welcome all of you in attendance. Thank you for coming. First item on our agenda is announcements. I do have one, and I think we've got our fire department insurance ratings back. Mr. Cave, if you don't mind, I'll put you on the spot.
Mr. Chair, we actually did get our results back from 6 departments that were inspected back in March, and we're officially ready to release those results. The departments that were inspected were, start off with Scaley Mountain Fire Department. They received protection class 6.
Where did they drop that from?
They were 7.
Okay.
Burntown, Iowa went to class 5. Cali Fire Department went to class 5. Mountain Valley Fire Department went to class 5. Nantahala Fire Department went to a class 5, and West Macon went to a class 4. So now, all of your departments in Macon County and their 5-mile district have at least a protection class 6 or lower, which means every residential structure is covered by protection class 6 or lower if they're within a 5-mile district. So
I'm sure you will, but please give those departments our congratulations, and I appreciate your departments and staff's work on that as well.
those folks did all the work. They did really well.
Good.
Thank you, Warren.
Thank you. The papers, y'all have the copies of those? Everybody? Okay. Any further announcements, Commissioner Bill, Commissioner Shields? Anybody else? Nope. All right, we'll all rise and we'll observe a moment of silence, and I'll ask Commissioner Higdon to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, next item we have is a public hearing concerning the approval of the execution, delivery, and performance of the contract and the deed of trust and the financing of the improvements to South Macon Elementary School. Is there a public comment period on that? Was there a sheet? I'm sorry, was there a sheet on that?
I turned the sheet in, Mr. Bill. There's nobody signed up on the other one.
I've got the one on public comment. There's nobody on the other one? Okay, thank you.
Nobody signed up on it.
Thank you. Well, I will call the public hearing to order. Any questions from the commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I think it'd be appropriate for there to be a summary, if you will, of what is contemplated by the financing upon which the public hearing is to be held. And there is a notice of public hearing that was published, and I think it would be appropriate for the public to know the terms of that proposed arrangement so that they might be able to ask questions if they don't know the terms of that financing. In short, this is financing that would take care of the cost of providing additions to the South Macon Elementary School. The proposed contract contemplates financing in a principal amount not to exceed $2,923,674, again, to construct additions to the South Macon Elementary School and to pay certain costs related to the execution and delivery of the contract. In this particular case, that financial obligation would be secured by a deed of trust and security agreement, and the county would be granting a lien upon the South Macon Elementary School property or some portion thereof, but it may well be the entire parcel of the South Macon Elementary School property. To secure this indebtedness, that property is located at 855 Addington Bridge Road, Franklin, North Carolina, 28734. With that introduction, I think it'd be appropriate at this time to give the public an opportunity to ask any questions they might have about that financing.
Okay. I don't believe anyone signed up to speak to this. Would anybody like to address the board?
I see Dr. Baldwin back there. Anything like to add to that?
And it needs to be said, this is no different than we've done on several other occasions, on several other projects, Dr. Baldwin.
Mr. Chairman, Brenda, I believe y'all gonna have a meeting on the 19th?
18th. Yeah, we'll actually be meeting on the 18th, I understand. Dr. Baldwin, correct me, we're there to look at the bids and accept the bid, what we consider to be the best bid, and formally approve that by our action on the 18th.
Our finance officer has some additional comments about the interest rate, term of the loan, and payment amounts.
Yes, I did go out to bids, solicited a number of banks for proposals. I received back 5 proposals. Integra Bank was the lowest at 3.35%. And that is a 15-year term. We will make semi-annual payments in arrears. The first payment would begin 6 months after the loan date. We would have a fixed principal component of $97,455.80, and of course the interest payments vary over the term of the loan. And just for your information, the other rates we obtained were 3.51, 3.67, 3.89, and a 3.93. So again, of course, we're recommending Integra at 3.35 as the lowest interest rate to move forward with this loan.
Right. Board, any questions? Anybody else?
Is there a starting date on this? Or, I know we're going through the paperwork. but-
August 1 is hopefully
August
the
1.
beginning construction date.
Okay.
We hope to close the loan the week of July 23rd, and then the plans are to try to have the contractor start August 1.
Questions, Carl? She emailed me about it. You want to ask Lori?
I mean, I've voiced this several times since these discussions started. I very much am in favor of doing the addition. I would like to see us pay for that out of fund balance in lieu of finance. That has been consistent, what I see from the get-go, and that has not changed.
Lori, I know we discussed this last Tuesday briefly. Did you get I think I talked to Derek about it. I think he talked to you about it. But did Davenport discuss this, what their recommendation was on it for our
Yes.
capital improvement plan?
Right. We're in an increasing rate environment currently. Since December of 2017, the feds have raised the rates 75 basis points, which is 0.75%. And according to the Federal Reserve, rates are expected to increase another 50 to 75 basis points, or 0.5% to 0.75% within the next 6 months. So if that happens, I mean, you're looking at, 1.5% increase over a 1-year time. So from my perspective, I definitely think there's a lot of merit to Carl's, wanting to maybe take a capital project out of fund balance. But to me, since we're already locked in at this good rate of 3.35%, and it's on a school project, which banks love to finance, I would recommend that we move forward with financing South Macon. And then as we move forward with the Byrne building, that's a community college, which part of it's bond money. We don't really have any interest in that property. It's deeded to Southwestern, not the county. So I think it's going to prove to be a little more difficult to get a loan on that project versus, again, with the school project, you don't have a a problem because they've got the school as collateral. And then the other thing to think about, since we are in a rising interest rate environment, you know, we're looking at a couple years, as laid out in the CIP, a possible $9 million senior center. So my suggestion would be maybe consider at that point, instead of doing an entire loan, you know, use a portion of fund balance to help hedge against those rising interest rates.
Okay. Thank you. Any further questions?
And Macon Middle School's in that project somewhere too, right, Laura? Or-
Yes, it is.
It is. I'm expecting us, as soon as this budget is completed, that we're going to probably start diving into the CIP plan pretty significantly as our time will allow. So I know we're all itching to discuss it and kind of see where we're going with that. So, okay. Get any other comment from the public on this? If not, I guess I'll close the public hearing. And I guess we need to take action on this. Carl, are you comfortable with that? Questions? I know where you stand.
I'm very comfortable.
Okay. Okay.
I don't think we need to take any action on it
Okay.
this evening. We will have a resolution prepared for next Tuesday night if action is desired by the board.
Okay. Thank you.
What does it do to their board meeting on Monday night, 18th, anything?
It didn't do anything
They don't
with
hit
theirs.
anything.
Just discussing where the money will come from.
Okay.
And one other thing I failed to mention, the LGC application has been submitted. As you know, as we discussed back in April, you've got to get the ball rolling, and there are certain deadlines that have to be met. So the application has been submitted. The application fee has been sent in. So, you know, our scheduled LGC meeting date is July 10th
Okay.
for them to approve.
Enjoy. All right. Public comment period. First up, we have Jennifer Love. Jennifer, welcome.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. Funding for our future. What I, as an educator, parent, resident, and future retiree of Macon County, hope for our schools and community now and in the future. Education for inspiration and innovation instead of evaluation. I hope to see our community grow as a hub for innovation, a place that people want to move because they know we are providing our students with opportunities and an education to lead them into the future. Opportunities such as smaller class sizes like those that are found down the road at Rabun Gap Nacoochee School. Opportunities for in-school programs such as the new audiovisual film lab at Rabun County Schools or the aviation simulation lab, robotics and computer literacy programs offered in Clay County, or the integrated curriculum and project-based learning at Tri-County Early College in Cherokee County. I hope for a school system more like the one we had before high-stakes testing and accountability. One with more content electives that apply to real careers. I hope for a school system that is not just supported by its local business and industry, but one where business and industry is integrated and applied in the classroom. I hope for students that are engaged in the community because they study, understand, and help solve the problems their community is faced with through their classes. How do we fund such a school system? There are millions of dollars available for communities through competitions, grants, and partnerships. These funds are available for forward-thinking, innovative ideas in education. We need people that can seek out these funds and bring them to Macon County. We also need a community that believes the talent we have in Macon County is worth growing and supporting. I hope that you will fully fund Macon County schools for the upcoming school year, and I also hope that we can work towards funding the school system we need for our future. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Stephanie Laster.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Lassner. I'm here as a parent of a rising 3rd and 6th grader at South Macon and MVI. And I really appreciate your efforts on South Macon, by the way. I didn't speak as a parent to that, but I wanted to acknowledge thank you for that at this time. I was interested and have been a little concerned about public education funding for several years, but in the past year I started asking a few more questions and having discussions with parents and friends of mine, and we all just wanted to be more informed and more engaged in the community as I look for opportunities for my kids. And this group of parents has come and attended meetings, and we very much appreciate the time that you all have given us to answer our inquiries and respond to our concerns. And I want to thank our liaison commissioners for their recommendation for an increase in funding over the proposed original proposal. And I want to thank all of you for considering that recommendation for the upcoming school budget. And we understand that this is very complicated, and we fully support you in the work that you're trying to do to make Macon County excel. So I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. John DeVille.
Hey.
Welcome, John.
Good evening. I haven't been in class for a few days, so you get handouts. There is no test, though. I want to echo what Stephanie just said and thank all of you for all the work and the reflection and listening to us for the past several weeks. I know that this is a difficult budget year. If you go online and you read the articles from across the state, it's a particularly difficult year for all county commissions across the state, and they're having the same discussions. The gap in school funding and healthcare costs. It's what you've seen in the paper here. Locally, you can see in the Charlotte Observer, you can see it come out of Morganton, you can see it out of Wilmington, you can see it in almost every single paper in the state. May 16th, 20,000 of us, including Jennifer and Caitlin and myself, 20,000 of us marched in Raleigh to bring to the public's attention the shortfall in public education in the last 7 years. I'll underscore, first of all, there were 5 priority goals created by the North Carolina County Commission Association, and you're probably familiar with them, but the public might not be, and I think that they're instructive to look at. Number 1 was to seek legislation to establish a new state-county partnership to address statewide public school capital challenges. So all counties are facing the issues that you just dealt with 5 minutes ago. The second one is a little bit more concerning, but I think it's also instructive to look at. The North Carolina County Commission Association is seeking legislation to repeal the statutory authority which currently allows school boards across the state to enter into litigation against their respective county commissions for shortfalls. Now, I'm not sure how long the authority has been there for school boards to do that, and we've never come close to that in Macon County, but I find it interesting and alarming that that is a statewide ask on the part of the North Carolina County Commission Association to the General Assembly, which tells me that there is increasing friction between county commissions and school boards, and I think that the root cause is the same. There's a lack of adequate funding coming from the North Carolina General Assembly. And then the third one that I'll highlight, support efforts to preserve and expand the existing local revenue base of counties and to oppose all efforts to divert the state fees or taxes currently allocated to the counties to the state. In other words, the money is going increasingly from the counties and back to Raleigh while there are more and more unfunded mandates being handed down. And I think that this has all got to change, otherwise whatever we were able to accomplish this year, it's going to be an even heavier lift come next year. Counties in North Carolina are certainly the creation of the state, but I would remind everybody that the state is the creation of the people. And I would suggest that you, the county commissioners of Macon County, those of you who have stood for election, most of you have stood for election more than once, and you've all been baptized in the fire of contentious public opinion. You all, more than anyone else, can serve as the champions of the people of Macon County. And so I'm standing for you tonight. I was here exactly 1 year ago with cataracts. I couldn't read then. But I stand here tonight asking you the same thing that I've asked you several times before, to speak from this platform, not just in meetings, but to speak from this platform, to raise your voices, our voices, to the General Assembly. I remain convinced, I have deep faith that if this body will speak with one voice, if you will link arms with other county commissions across the region, I do believe that the people on Jones Street will hear us, and they will accordingly adjust to the funding schemes that are currently in place. Currently, we are in North Carolina, we are 25% below the national average in per pupil spending. In 2008, we were 18% below. The first graphic that I gave you shows you in the red column what the proposed funding is for various categories for fiscal year 18-19. And in almost every single case, that's short, dramatically short from the high water mark, and most of the things that you see there in the left-hand column are from the years 2008, 2009. The second graphic that I gave you, and I think also this one is there's a lot that is brought to light. This is a graph showing general funding per student in the states that are the worst 12 off. And you look at those states, Oklahoma, Texas, Kentucky, Alabama, Arizona, West Virginia, and then you find our name down there towards the bottom, 7.9% below. What do a lot of those states have in common? Those are the states that we have seen on the nightly news where teachers have been marching on their various state capitals. Mr. Beal has said several times, and I agree with him 100%, that funding everything for most things outside of brick and mortar is the state's responsibility. And Mr. Beal said something last week that I also agree with. Unfortunately, I have to agree with him that this may become, and not so unfortunately I have to agree with him, it's the truth that he's saying that I find unfortunate that we have to have common ground on, that we're in this era of new normal where counties are being left. I'm fortunate, I am so grateful, one, that you all have made the decision that I think that you're about to memorialize next Tuesday. I'm also deeply grateful for this group of commissioners who have exercised over the decades wise, prudent stewardship over tax dollars. You haven't squandered it, and if you had, we wouldn't be in the position to respond the way that you have been able and the way that you have signaled that you will finish up next Tuesday. But I am concerned about the game of chicken that we are playing in this state. And in one car we have the General Assembly barreling down a country road, and in another car we've got county commissions. And in the middle of that we've got the educational lives of children in the state of North Carolina. Now this time the County Commission of Macon County blinked and came up with another $700,000 to make sure that we would not fall below the services that we were able to provide in last fiscal year. But Mr. Beal made the point several times from this position and in other situations that if we do that, we are in some form or fashion enabling the state in these shenanigans. And I'm not sure what the right thing is to do. I do know that leaving the children in the lurch is not the right thing to do. Mr. Beal also used the phrase last Tuesday about making county schools whole. I agree and I disagree with that particular contention. I agree that we are made whole relative to 2017, 2018, but to make us whole relative to the high water mark of 2008, 2009, probably another million and a half to get to that level right there. The third graph that I've given you shows you the gap of where we are in 2017, 2018 versus where we were 2008, 2009. We don't get as many teachers per 1,000 students as we did 10 years ago. And as you see the gold bar right there going across the line, while the economy has recovered, the spending from the state has not kept up. There's a couple points that Commissioner Higdon made a week ago that I would like to speak to as well. Mr. Higdon pointed out that when he was in school, we didn't have mower roller, we didn't have nurses. I totally agree that those things didn't happen. We over time have we try to improve our lot in life. But secondly, I would suggest to everybody in the room that income inequality, lack of economic mobility has pushed what was accessible for an average family 4 decades ago, things like dental and health care, has put us out of reach for so many of our fellow citizens. I would also suggest that mower roller, school nurses, and things like roads. If you go back and study North Carolina's history, why were roads originally pushed for in this state? And Governor Cameron Morrison, and you'll see the signs across the state, he's known as the Good Roads Governor. There were two main reasons that he was pushing for roads, and one was the obvious one. It was a support for business infrastructure in the state. But the other reason that Morrison pushed for roads in this state was to improve public education, to be able to consolidate from the 1 and 2 and 3 room schools to the modern ones that we started putting up in the late 30s and early 40s in this state. And I would also suggest that while we can see all these expenditures for schools, for mower roller, for roads, for all of that, I think that's an overall investment in our community, in human capital. If we don't have that, then the top employers in Macon County, Drake Enterprises, Ingalls, Lowe's, Walmart, Angel, Integra, Shaw, Tectone, can't not do what they want to do. They can't make the money that they want to make for themselves and their shareholders. There was another point that Commissioner Higdon made last week too that I'd also like to point to, and I think this is the more important one. We were going down the line of all the different expenditures, and there's a little back and forth between Commissioner Higdon and Dr. Baldwin on, well, what came out of what pot of money? Is it county money or is it state money? And Commissioner Higdon made the point, well, ultimately it all comes out of the hip pocket. And I agree with you 100%. Everything that comes from government comes from somebody's hip pocket. But I would also suggest that not all hip pockets are the same. And I would suggest that it's fair, it's more equitable, it's more efficient for the money to be coming out of the hip pocket for state income taxes, which are a little bit more progressive than property taxes. Every person in this room knows somebody here in Macon County who is land rich and cash poor. So as the state puts more and more of a burden on us in the various counties, either forcing us into the horrible decision of letting educational services decline or raising property taxes, that does put, I believe, an unfair burden on those people who are on a fixed income. In 1933, recognizing that this state was devolving to the haves and have-nots, the state passed the School Machineries Act. And the goal of that act was to equalize school funding. And we've been moving away from that at a rapid clip. And I'll take your attention to the next one. That shows you a widening gap from as early as, say, 1997. The biggest gap between rich and poor counties on a per student basis was $1,000. Now it's up to almost $2,400. I don't think that we want a state that has have and have-nots. If you look at the graph that goes right after that, and I think that that one is an eye-opener as well, it shows you that the counties of Clay, Columbus, Greene, Graham, Hoke, Robeson, Swain County, 6 counties added up together still don't equal what Orange County pays on a per pupil basis. And again, do we want that in our state? And why am I saying this to a group of county commissioners? Again, I would encourage you as much as I can to make your voices heard loudly on Jones Street. And I'll close with one last thing that you may or may not have seen in the news in the past week. And I am deeply disturbed possible ramifications for public education in the state because of this 2 pieces of legislation. One was in the state budget, the other one was a so-called local bill, and that local bill is HB 514. Well, what does HB 514 do? HB 514 gives Mecklenburg County, it gives 4 townships in Mecklenburg County, Matthews, Mint Hill, Cornelius, and say again? Thank you. Gives those four townships the option to create their own municipal charter. Well, how can that possibly negatively impact Macon County? Well, also buried in the state budget is the authority now for municipalities to tax their citizens. So you may see municipalities, at least in those areas, decide to kind of wall off their area, raise their property taxes, and create their own little special schools. Well, again, what's the big deal for Macon County? Why would that be a horrible thing? You're setting a precedent for one thing, and the state is sending a signal that, hey, you know, going down the road, we may continue to devolve our support for public education and ask counties and municipalities to pick up the slack. So, again, I appreciate everything that you've done, that you do. I don't think I'd ever run for your job. I know it's tough. I am deeply grateful to all of you, to the amount of reflection that you have to do this job well. I've stood before county commissions here in Franklin since 1996. I don't think that the 5 people who are currently serving right now, you all are as good as I've ever stood before. You've always been respectful. You've always allowed me to speak. You've always responded. We've disagreed strongly, but I think through the process of vigorous argument, we frequently come to a place that we can all agree is the best for our kids. And I thank you all very much for your service. Thank you.
Norrell?
Well, I may as well go home. There's no way I can follow that. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a book I wrote that is available in the library, so I'm not excluding you. And
You not bring us a copy, Norrell?
I'm just going to start it right now.
Okay, read it.
And if you would pass it around. I had the extraordinarily good fortune a couple of decades ago to go through that classic syndrome when your parents have died and you have to go up to the attic and clean it out. And I found there, much to my surprise, a diary by my father. And I thought, I don't understand. He and Mother were very close. Why didn't Mother ever tell me about this? Then I started reading it, and I realized that he had taken adventures following the First World War, the Great War, with his roommate from Columbia, and there was no way he was ever going to tell Mother about what he did. But it is in that book. I sent it to the head of the North Carolina Museum of History. In the front of the book, if you open the first page, there's a copy of a letter from Ken Howard, very complimentary about this book, and he's going to include it in his exhibit of the Great War. He also invited me to come, and so I am here tonight to ask something that perhaps the county has not thought about doing. I'm not able to drive to Raleigh. I have glaucoma, and it would be, I can get to maybe Asheville if I really stretch it, but to go 6 hours in my car would be too difficult. I would request that you all investigate the exhibit of the Great War that's at the North Carolina Museum right now. It's certainly going to be there through November because that is the centennial of the armistice, November 11th. And see if we can have a Macon Transit where interest is solicited from the residents of Macon County, and we have a group tour that would go out the 6 hours, do the tour. Perhaps if we had a driver who was willing, he could bring us back that same day, but maybe one overnight would be more acceptable. But if there was interest, I'd certainly like to sign up for something like that. And that leads me very quickly into my main area of concern, which I have been rapping on since last year, and I've received assurances from one of you that you all would look seriously at it. It is really time to redo the Greenway Path. You can drive at a certain time of day, under certain weather conditions, and find you're the only car in Tassie, Big Bear, any of the three, and of course now the library. But there are other days you can drive there and you can't find a parking space. The usage is popular and strong, but it fluctuates a lot. So there are many people who would really appreciate, whether they're toddlers or in their elderly years like me, a smooth pathway where there is no gravel, everything is macadam, and we can walk safely. Please, since we are getting very near your budget time, include that improvement.
Thank you, Norrell. Sarah Caldwell?
It's at the library or the bookstore.
Where do you buy it? You buy it at the bookstore?
Welcome, Sarah.
Hi. My name's Sarah Caldwell. I'm the mom of 2 kids in the Macon County school system. They've been in the Macon County school system for 5 years now, and we have been really, really happy with all of the teachers and the administration in the schools, and we really appreciate you all working together to make such a great school system. I appreciate you investigating and looking at the additional funding for the schools. I do a little bit of work in the schools and in the classroom. I try to go into the classroom and help with math because that's what I like to do. And I'm always struck by the amount of difference there is in one elementary classroom from kids that are struggling with math to the kids that are excelling. And I know that it's really important for the teachers to have assistants. I don't know how they can really engage all those kids of different levels without having some assistance, and I know that a lot of you understand that need and appreciate that, and so I just appreciate being part of the process here, and thank you for considering the additional funding for the schools.
All right,
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thank you for being able to do the new math.
All right. Tamara Lynn?
Good evening. I just wanted to speak on three things.
Okay.
I know there's the school funding that's on the table this evening, and also someone had mentioned the senior center funding that's coming up, and I tried to reach you. Thank you for calling back. And then I spoke with another commissioner about this when I read about it in the paper, the senior center. You know, our children are our top priority, and communities depend on not only adequate education for our children, but an education that's going to prepare them for the future. So it's something really crucial and very important, I think, at any cost. And we also have to take care of our seniors. So these are two things we need to balance. I think everybody agrees with that. We can't sacrifice one or the other. And when I read in one of the local papers that there's this proposal for expansion of the senior center, I thought, oh, well, that's interesting. And I read on further, and some of the proposal is based on projections that there will be people moving up from Florida. Now, I know people from Florida who live here. I'm a permanent resident. They're a permanent resident. They have many friends from Florida. However, those friends are not moving up here. They don't plan to move up here. As a matter of fact, they're no longer even visiting the area because they are senior and they cannot get up here. So they're continuing to reside in Florida. Now, if you're going to spend $9 million on a senior center based on projections that people are moving up from Florida, and I don't know how accurate that is or how much that figures into your proposal, I would suggest that is really a bad idea. So what I would like to ask you to do is really look at what your projections are based on. Are they really founded on the people that actually live here? You know, the growth? And if you're anticipating this growth, what are you really basing that on? You know, it can't just be people saying their friends are going to move up here. Oh, we need an expanded parking lot. Those things may be true, but I just really want it to be founded on something that's actual and not just potential growth. And if you are basing that on something that might potentially happen, perhaps you can come up with innovative ways, not building all at once, but maybe put the money in a particular budget over a 10-year period, whatever. And if the projections don't pan out, don't spend that money. Return it to, you know, the county. So that said, I know I've lived in areas where there is a lot of tourism, and there's always the expectation that people are going to move up there to an area or move up here And there's just a lot of things to really consider. We don't want people moving here, they're just part-time residents, or they have vacation homes here and they're just taking up space and they're not really contributing. People that move up here, we need to be sure they're going to contribute to the economy, contribute to the taxes, contribute to the finances of the county and not just sap resources. Okay, this is a great area, it's a beautiful area to live in, but I just really feel very strongly about that if you want to, be fiscally sound in the future. And when I heard about what's happening at the schools, I was very disappointed to hear that, there's not adequate funding for advanced placement programs. When children do make it to on to college, they find that they're behind in their studies. And really, that's just not acceptable. We're in an age now where our children have to be prepared to handle all types of technology, all types of innovations. And it's a brand new frontier, and to miss that opportunity to make it possible for our children to participate in that is really irresponsible. I mean, there's so many great ways that you could just look at Silicon Valley. I mean, you could have another Silicon Valley. Why not? Why not become an area with robotics like they're doing up in Massachusetts, with Senator Kennedy up there. They have manufacturing up there where they're just really excelling and they're creating jobs for the community. All those things are possible. There's no reason it really shouldn't be possible. Instead of spending $9 million on expansion of a senior center, if it's not needed, you could put that towards really venture capital or whatever, encouraging that, or other types of innovations.
Have you ever been to the Senior Citizen Center?
No.
Good one.
I'm a social worker, so I know a lot about aging and various things, but no, I haven't visited the senior center. And again, I don't want anybody to misunderstand me. It's not that I don't think it's important.
What we're basing on is from 2012, and it's not people moving in and out, it's the consistency of the growth of local residents and, and the consistency of the growth. If you visit, just go by one day at 12 if you have time. That's all you'll have to do. You can find a parking spot.
Yeah, I know.
Just go by at 12.
Yeah. And that's sound. I mean, I agree with you 100%. That's sound thinking, and that lunchtime is very important.
Just go by.
Yeah,
Maybe you can do some meals on the wheels while you're there.
There was a time when seniors, the reason we created really the Social Security system is because women were living in absolute poverty, and there was a lot of starvation going on in the elderly population. So, of course, we don't want to do that. Pardon me?
You might not know, we're one of the few counties that still does adult daycare. For $35 a day is all Medicaid pays for that.
Okay.
But Macon County still, we backfill that with county dollars, so they keeps them out of the rest home. So that's another thing that Macon County does at the Senior Citizen Center, is just outside of no need for seniors to come to have a place for lunch or for that. But as we've seen that continue to go, and we have the gentleman right here that's in charge of it, sitting right behind you, that will tell you the numbers that he saw, Mr. Beckencourt. So we looked at the numbers pretty close, just to satisfy your mind. So.
Well, I'm not doubting that. And again, I prefaced all my comments on the projections. Just making sure the projections are sound. Again, we have to balance the needs of seniors with those of students and other residents in the community. So I'm all for senior services, don't get me wrong. And it sounds like, you've done a very good job of making, pardon me?
We still have work to do.
Yeah. So it's just, like I said, when I read in the article about this projection, people moving up here, I just thought, wait a second, don't base it on that. The other thing that I think, I understand is that you're paying 100% of employees' health care costs. That is really something, if you're, discussing these proposals and funding things that cannot go on. It's a great benefit. It's a great attraction to get into government employment. But, I'm a recent resident here, and I moved from California. We all almost went bankrupt. We were the first state to have furloughs. Why was that? Spending too much. We, as a government employee, I retired from the state of California. We paid, I think the state paid 60%, or maybe it was 50% of our health care premium. We paid the other 50%, okay? We didn't get 100% coverage. The last time I had a job where I had the employer paying 100% of my health care premium, I think it was back in the 80s. I mean, it just can't go on. I know people don't like the idea that they're going to have to pay part of it, and if you're freezing, you're not giving cost of living increases, which you have to do if you're going to make employees pay part of the premium. You're going to have cost of living increases. You got to balance it out somewhere. But it's just not feasible. It's not sustainable to continue to pay 100%. And some of that money then could go back in and pay for these other projects like the senior center, increased school funding. So I know it's not popular to do that, but it's just something that's got to be done. The other thing I just briefly want to talk about, the most important thing to me, is the loss of Michael Scott Nibbs in the shooting that took place, I believe it was on April 30th. That involved a county deputy, I believe. So that is now probably involved in some kind of litigation or settlement. Apparently he was an upstanding citizen, never had any reason, not involved in law enforcement or any criminal matters. He left a wife and 3 children and 2 grandchildren, and a sister and some other family members. Now, I don't blame the deputy. I don't blame Mr. Nibbs. I would like you, I don't know if there's anything you can do about it, but to look at the 911 call that was made. In some counties, 911 swatting is a felony. I don't know if there's a law in this county against 911 swatting. That's when people make calls that really aren't legitimate calls to 911, and they do it vindictively to cause a disturbance between law enforcement and their victim. And it many times results in a shooting. There was a gentleman that was just convicted in Los Angeles County for 911 swatting. Now, I have the capability to get that 911 call and to listen to it myself to see what the details were of that call. And you can do that also. And if I decide to do that, you know, we could pressure the district attorney to prosecute or to, you know, take measures to indict the individual that was involved. Apparently there was a dispute between the neighbors, and there seems to be some doubt that that call was legitimate, and unfortunately the career of a deputy is now ruined and his life is tarnished forever. No officer ever wants to end up shooting a perpetrator or somebody in a situation that, you know, is tragic like this. And Mr. Nibbs, his life is gone and his family's left without a husband and a father. So, and then the county is going to be, imagine, facing some kind of settlement. So these are the most tragic deaths, and I think we shouldn't just gloss over it and let it be forgotten, but there should be something that's really done to leave no stone unturned before there is a settlement, and that every party that was involved that should be prosecuted is prosecuted, including perhaps the individual that made that 911 call. Thank you so much for your time.
Molly Phillips. Welcome, Molly.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Molly Phillips. My husband and I own a small business in town, and I work for part-time also for a regional nonprofit here.
but I'm here tonight to be a parent and talk a little bit about education. I wanted to just say that there are quite a few parents here that maybe didn't want to speak in public, and many of whom who could not make it tonight because summer's just a hard time. We're all vacationing, but they're also at baseball practice and swim practice and at those facilities that you guys helped support originally, and we appreciate you providing those resources for our children to have safe and good places to go and participate in. So thank you for that. We're also thankful for you listening to our concerns over the past few months and hearing our pleas for funding for education. Stephanie and I both got involved in this process because we have young children. I have a rising third grader and a rising sixth grader as well. And it seems like that they're very young and they have quite a few, many years in Macon County schools, but actually those years go by super fast, as you well know as parents yourselves. I know that Cartouche, where my son attends, seems like it's a fairly new building, but he was actually 8 years old the year that he was born, and now he's a ending second grader. And it was 4 years before my husband and I moved to Franklin that building was built. My 11-year-old daughter was born the year that the first iPhone came out, and now there's been 10 updated versions of that iPhone. So things are certainly changing quickly, and I think that's why you see so many parents that are so passionate about education because of the fast changes that have happened over the past 10 to 15 years. But we feel like, that investing in education is a good thing and that you will get a return on your investment. As you know, communities do well when they attract young families to this community. I know you guys all know the statistics of reduced crime rates and mental health issues because of increased education, and I know those are all topics that you all care about very much and care very deeply about. So I applaud especially the school liaison committee members who sat on that and made that recommendation for increased funding over the original budget, and I appreciate the consideration that you guys are making currently on their proposal for that. We recognize that your jobs aren't easy and that budgets aren't easy. My home budget isn't easy. It's not fun to do, and I can imagine sitting with the budget that you guys have is difficult and not fun. But when you invest in our kiddos and you show that they're a priority to you, just like they're a priority to us, it matters to the parents that are sitting in this room and the parents that are at the Macon County Rec Park right now and at Parker Meadows right now. It matters to them too, and they take notice and they recognize it, and they support you in your work you're doing. So we appreciate that, and we think that that is a win-win for Macon County, and appreciate all that you do. So thank you very much.
Barbara Putman. Welcome, Barbara.
Hi, I'm Barbara Putman. I'm here as the parent of a rising fourth grader at the wonderful Iola Valley Elementary. And I just wanted to thank you for all of the hard work that you do on this budget and all of the budgets every year. I know I've been in education almost 30 years myself, and so I know of the competing commitments. We all want to do it all for our communities, our citizens, our children, and our seniors. So I just wanted you to know that we as parents, we recognize that. I'm very involved with the PTO at Iola. I know that when we give parents a specific issue to rally around, they step right up for that, and I know that the citizens of Macon County do that. I appreciate you for the transparency in the hearings, the budget information, the online materials. That gives us a chance to share that with other parents who can't always come out to the meetings. And so as Molly and others have alluded to, there are others behind us and listening and wanting to know more. And so we're going to try to help ourselves and continue to educate people and let them know about how tough it is, how, to give here is to take here. And I agree with Jennifer as well that there are other opportunities for us with national, international, and grant programs and things that we could pursue as a county and compete, be competitive with other places that are getting that funding. And we deserve it here, and we can fight for it. And I think the parents of Macon County, the citizens of Macon County would support that. So thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Is there anyone else that would like to address the board? Come on up, sir. Michael, what's your last name?
Vargas. I'm Michael Vargas, and I've just graduated from Macon Early College and Southwestern Community College, so I'm a rising college student. So to that end, I haven't prepared anything. But
Kudos to you for stepping up.
but I've always had a great experience in the schools in this town. I've always had a great experience in everything in this town. I love living here, and I'd like to continue to live here as an adult. However, I want to be a teacher, and from my experience in this area, it's not the best area to be a teacher. A couple of other friends of mine also would like to be teachers, and I don't think every one of us would love to come back and teach here, but not a single one plans to, just because the situation just isn't great. And I mean, you know, obviously that's not the only point I would like to make. Most of them right before me, but yeah, basically I just want to say I'd love to come back and teach here, but I just don't have a lot of encouragement to. So I'd like for you all to think about that when you do this immense task ahead of you.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome to Boy Scout.
All right. Any additions to the agenda? I have one I'd like to add. Anyone else? Go ahead. Lori, go ahead.
I've got those I had emailed
You did?
Friday. There were 6, 2 capital project ordinance amendments, 2 grant project ordinance amendments, and then 2 grant project ordinances that I had emailed on Friday.
Correct.
So, and I had asked to add them under consent, or if you want to put them under regular agenda, you know,
I'm
that's
fine
whatever
with them
the
under
board's
consent
pleasure.
unless,
Yeah, they're just administrative things that I have to do at your
End of the year.
End of the
Okay.
year
I'm fine with them.
administrative items.
Are y'all consent? Ronnie? Gary?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. We'll move them under consent.
12F.
Yep.
All right. Anyone else, Chester?
Yes, sir.
I have one thing. We got a minimal library request. Let's put that as 11G under new business. Sorry.
11I.
Sorry.
What's the name of it?
Library.
Request.
Anything else? We'll get a motion to approve the agenda.
So moving, Chairman.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Reports and presentations, letter of intent with HCA. Ms. Karen Gorby. Welcome, Karen. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you for your time this evening. I'm going to open my PowerPoint here. Can you all see that?
We can. We have it in front of us.
Good. And I apologize to those in back of me. You can see the PowerPoint. So I come tonight to talk a little bit about mass extinction.
Well, you're off to a good start.
Yes, yeah. I could sing karaoke instead. Maybe so many people wouldn't leave.
Wait a minute, the fence not over.
Okay.
You're clear.
I'm clear. So I'm Karen Gorby. I'm President CNO of Angel Medical Center, and it's my privilege to be here and give you an update on what's happening with HCA and Mission Health and Angel Medical Center. To start with, I just want to talk a little bit about Angel Medical Center. We are a critical access hospital, so that means that we get special funding for the government because we're in a rural health area. And also that we can only have up to 25 inpatients at a time in our facility. And sometimes it's a little tough in our location with keeping under 25 patients. We also provide all services at our facility, including inpatient, ICU, operative, our diagnostic services. So although we're small, we're still a full-service hospital here. Angel Medical Center is a top 100 critical access hospital. There are over 1,200 rural and critical access hospitals. It's really difficult to get to that top 100. We've been there for the past 3 years. And so that's really based on the outcomes that we provide our patients in Franklin and in Macon County. We're also, we got a 4-star rating from CMS. We're the only hospital in this region with a 4-star rating.
If you don't mind, I'm gonna have you speak into that microphone. They're having difficulty hearing you behind you.
Oh, sure. Is that better?
Is that, yeah,
Okay.
thank you. Thank you, Karen.
So we're the only hospital in this region with a 4-star rating, and that is through the government. And all of those are outside agencies that validate the care that we provide here. So as you're aware, in March, Mission Health announced a letter of intention to be part of HCA. And so I'm just going to walk through the phases that we've gone through and the due diligence to work on becoming part of HCA. As you're aware, currently Mission Health is a nonprofit organization and HCA is a for-profit organization. So it does bring both opportunity and benefit to our community in a way that Mission Health alone would not be able to do. In doing so, you know, Mission Health is a highly successful organization. We're a top 15 healthcare provider in the country, and that's based on our quality outcomes. And it's not that Mission Health is really financially in a situation where we need to merge, but in looking at the changing healthcare environment in the future and being able to sustain healthcare in this area, Mission Health decided to look for a partner. And they did look for a partner from a number of different organizations, and really chose HCA because our missions are the same. It's about our patients. It's about providing high quality healthcare to the communities that we serve. And so the decision of Mission Health Board was then to develop a letter of intent with HCA. Any questions? So when I talk to my staff about going through this process, it's kind of like when you're starting to date somebody and you think that you want a long-term relationship, and you look at continuing to date and find out more about someone, and then you decide to get engaged, and then you end up getting married. And so that's really what we've been doing. So the first phase of that is really to have that letter of intent that was made known in March. And then the second phase that we're just completing is due diligence. So there's due diligence on both our side from Mission Health and from HCA. Mission Health submitted over 25,000 documents to Healthcare Corporation of America. And a lot of it was our quality information, our different contracts that we have. And so what's been happening in the last few weeks is that members of HCA have been coming and doing site visits at Angel Medical Center and all the other Mission Health facilities. And so we're just about through that due diligence phase. And so we've both learned a lot about each other. And I can say that the visits here from the HCA contingency have been very enlightening and very engaging. And so we've appreciated having that ability to entertain them at our facility so they can learn more about Angel Medical Center and we can learn more about HCA. So then the third phase is to have an agreement. And so after the due diligence, the purchase agreement will be determined. And once that purchase agreement has been approved from both sides, then that's really when we'll go ahead and submit it to the Attorney General. And so it'll really be up to the Attorney General of the state whether or not the merger with HCA and Mission happens. And so we're getting close to having that purchase agreement ready and approved, and then we'll be able to submit that to the Attorney General. We hope to have some kind of outcome either by the end of November or the beginning of 2019. So when you think about why did we choose as a nonprofit organization a for-profit organization, and again it really wasn't about the profit or non-for-profit side, it was really about values. And you know, both Mission Health and the HCA hospitals have high clinical outcomes, and they look at a number of indicators, including they become magnet hospitals, which are really the highest quality of nursing care that can be provided. You look at in a magnet hospital. If you look at the ability to research and grow and increase the level of care we provide our patients, one of the areas is their cancer care through the Sarah Cannon Foundation. They have the highest number of cancer research protocols in the country, and so that'll be available to our residents here in Franklin and Macon County. So it's those kinds of possibilities that really are exciting to us, because we'll have new doors that we can open to provide higher levels of care here. The other thing is, because they're the largest healthcare corporation in the United States, they also are called on to do trials so that we can continue to improve our high quality care and develop evidence-based practice. And the thing that's really, I think, going to be a benefit to our community is their graduate medical education. And so they've already been in discussions with MAHEC about how can we enhance the residency programs in Western North Carolina and have more residents in our rural healthcare communities, and then be able to then recruit and retain those physicians. Some of the things too that they help with our opportunities is we look at our billing platform that has a lot of opportunities, and HCA has an established billing platform. It's called Parallon, and so instead of us spending millions of dollars recreating and buying software, they can really come in and help us with that platform. That ours is not as effective and as efficient as it could or should be. So when we look at the entities of HCA, you can see that they have almost 180 hospitals, a number of ambulatory service areas, care access centers, and then a number of physicians. And one of the reasons they were actually very interested in Mission Health is because of our employed physician group and the success that we've had, and they want to learn from us. When you look at the foundation of support, one of the things again was Parallon, and then you look at their health trust. And their health trust is their buying corporation, and so because they have larger economies of scale, when they look at the market, they can actually go out and buy medication cheaper and supplies cheaper, and then warehouse those, and then as their facilities need it, then they can distribute that. And
Can I ask you, how many, just tell us right quick, how many hospitals HCA is in with populations less than 40,000?
As far as I know, that there are rural health hospitals.
How many do you know?
I know of at least a half a dozen, and we're planning to do a site visit to one of those. So they.
Where's that at? Do you know?
I'm not sure right now. I know that one of the hospitals we're going to go see is in Dallas.
So they have 6 out of 180.
But they do have other rural health hospitals out in the West
What
Coast.
do they consider rural? Do you know the population?
I don't know how they designate
rural
that.
Rural is sometimes 200,000. So.
Yeah, I can find that answer for you.
That'd be very interesting.
Okay. Yeah, it's a question that we actually ask about when the regional president was here. That was my question about rural health, and so we had a good discussion about it, but I can find those numbers. We are rural. But the Health Trust really helps us then when recently, we've had the hurricane down in Puerto Rico, and we've had a number of drug shortages and IV fluid shortages. So having that Health Trust inventory then helps even out those shortages. And so then we don't have to look at other alternatives and delivery systems for our patients. Any questions? Any other questions? Okay. So how does really HCA benefit our community? And I think that, the sustainability of healthcare in this region, HCA can really help with that because of the breadth and the depth of the system. And when you look at the buying ability as far as supplies, it really helps narrow that margin of cost from a healthcare perspective. I think the other piece, and we're still working on some of the things as far as the proceeds of the sale of Mission Health will form a trust, a foundation that will greatly change, especially the social determinants of health in Western North Carolina. And so, with that ability to look at housing, transportation, those kinds of things that, it's not just about the medication and inpatient hospital care, but how can we keep people healthy in our communities? That's really where that foundation will be of benefit. It is a separate foundation. It is not integrated in any way with HCA. And so it'll be similar to, as I look at my colleague from the Duke Foundation, from Duke Endowment, ability to apply for grants and look at different projects that really help the social needs of our residents in this area. The other thing is that it is a for-profit organization, and so we will be paying taxes, and so that will also be a benefit to this community, and especially listening to our challenges with education and other things. This will really help both the town of Franklin and the Macon County, with there being 2 hospitals from HCA in that county. So, so those are the benefits that we see from a long-range investment in being part of HCA.
You know how the board of that super foundation will be composed?
They're working on that right now, and I know that Dr. Paulus is taking the lead on making sure they get someone from the western region and the eastern region of Mission Health. And so, I know that one concern is, because Bunk County is a big county with a lot of needs, we want to make sure that opportunity is spread across all the country, or all the counties in western North Carolina, all 18 of them. So, so I know that's been a concern.
And I hope they'd look for the foundations or suing HCA like in Kansas City.
Right.
They're suing them now.
Yeah.
And other places, the foundations are having to sue them to get for the things that they are not doing in the community. So I hope when they form the foundation, they would really look at things like that and don't forget, the
right.
rural hospital.
Absolutely.
Can they even spell rural, you think?
Yes, they can.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll find out.
Yeah, I've honestly, in my interaction, I've interacted with quite a few folks from HCA, been very impressed with their knowledge of rural health, and they actually brought someone out of retirement who is really helping to focus on that. So
when are you going to make your visit, do you know?
In July sometime.
We'd be anxious to hear your thoughts. We think you'll tell us what you think.
Yes, yeah, and there'll be a group. It might not be me that gets to go, but we'll let you know how that went. So I have some cards, and I can share them with our community participants as well. If you have questions about the process and where we're at, you can go to the website, and there's what we call frequently asked questions there. And as people have new questions, they have new answers. Obviously, there's a lot that we don't know yet, and as we're doing our due diligence and looking at this merger, we're learning. So I might not have all the answers to your questions today, but as time goes by, I certainly will. And so I have just one more slide to share with you. As we've been talking about the plans to build our new hospital here in Franklin. One of the pieces that was included in the letter of intent was the build of the new hospital here in Franklin. And so we're continuing to do our planning. And right now we're doing what we call space validation and service validation. And so when we started doing this about 18 months ago, one of the things that wasn't as prominent as it is today is having telehealth. And so we want to incorporate that into the build of the new hospital, which is really going to help those of us who are in rural health get access to physicians and not have to leave home. Then we'll update what we call our bridging documents. And after we do that, then we'll send out our request for proposal we're going to do a design build. So the architect will actually be the builder the same firm. So this will facilitate the build of the new hospital. And once we get that done, then we can develop a plan for the new hospital. Once the plan is about 70% done, then we'll apply for the special use permit from the town of Franklin and go ahead and purchase our site once that's approved. And right now we plan to move in the winter of 2022. That is the longest time frame that it'll be. I'm hoping personally that it'll be sooner than that, but I just wanted to give you an update on what that timeline is going to look like. So, any questions? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Let's see, I'm going to go ahead and turn this off.
Drum roll. Sarah, welcome. Appreciate your patience.
Yeah, good evening.
Southwestern Commission Annual Report.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, members of the public who are left. Sarah Thompson, Executive Director of the Southwestern Commission Council of Governments, sometimes called Region A. There are 16 of us across the state, and we were formed in 1965, and we were one of the first councils of government formed in North Carolina. They started lettering them across the state. That's why we're Region A. Organizations like the Southwestern Commission exist in every state in the United States, and they were all formed around the same time. In the mid-60s, early 70s, when a lot of federal programs were put into place that delivered programs, federal programs to the local level, and regional organizations such as ours were determined to be the most efficient way to deliver those programs to local governments. So we serve the 7 western counties, Haywood County West, and the 17 municipalities within. We are owned and governed by the local governments. So our board is made up of county commissioners, mayors, town board members. You all are on our mailing list and receive notice of our meetings, and I encourage you to please come and join us at our board meetings. It's a great way to learn more about our organization and also network with other local elected officials in the region, hear about what's going on in their communities, maybe share some stories, and we feed you. So please do come to our board meetings. The way we are funded, all of our member governments pay 75 cents per capita. For Macon County and in your upcoming fiscal year, that will be based on a population estimate of 30,749. That does not include the 4,097 residents of Franklin or the 933 residents of Highlands, because they pay us dues as well. We use those local dues, which the local dues of all 7 counties and 17 towns raised approximately $157,000. That money is used as the local match for the federal and state funds that come into Region A. So we leverage your $157,000 that the region pays in local dues to bring in approximately a $6 million budget to run our programs. We have 3 primary departments that I'll go over really quickly. The vast majority of our budget are pass-through funds. They come to us and we contract those funds out to agencies in the region that are eligible to provide those services. First department I'll mention is the Area Agency on Aging. Those are federal funds from the Older Americans Act. Among many things, they fund programs for dementia-capable communities, family caregiver support, the well-known Meals on Wheels, and congregate meals in the senior centers. We do, as a region in North Carolina, have the highest percentage of growth in our aging population as compared to the working age families. That's largely due to the slow pace of economic development in a rural region that is attracting a lot of our youth away to more urban areas for jobs while folks that have lived here their whole lives continue to age. So I commend you on your attention to the needs of your seniors. Another department we run is workforce development. Those are federal funds under the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. You're likely familiar with the NC Works Career Centers. Those programs that occur in the career centers are related to these funds. Also, the youth programs that are run in some of the school systems and other agencies in the region that deal with out-of-school youth. So those are funds to help students who are going to drop out of high school get their GED, get on a career path, get some job experience. The federal funding for adults are adults that for workforce issues are adults that have barriers to employment. So it's funding to help folks find the training and credentials they need to be employed, in a nutshell. Our third department is Community and Economic Development. That is the department where we do the most direct service to local governments. We write a lot of grants, help with project management. We do board facilitation, strategic planning, things like that when local governments request those services of us. We're the lead agency for the Appalachian Regional Commission, which is a federal program for funding Appalachian communities across 11 states in the eastern United States. We're the lead agency for the U.S. Economic Development Administration, and we run the Rural Planning Organization, which is the DOT liaison between NCDOT and local governments. We do a lot of regional scale projects when the need arises and local governments agree that it's needed, such as the recently completed broadband survey. Our next stage of the broadband project regionally will be to do an asset inventory. We're working very closely with the State Broadband Office, and that is their recommended next step for a region to take. We're focusing on vertical assets since it's largely recognized that in a rural region it will be cost prohibitive to run fiber to every person's home, but wireless technology is improving every day. So we are trying to help facilitate some solutions to the broadband issues. I'll leave it at that, as I know you have a long agenda ahead of you, but I thank you for a few minutes of your time tonight. This is our annual report. It's just a snapshot of the work we do, and I think you all know where to find me, so if you ever have any needs or questions, please don't hesitate to give me a call.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah,
Thank you,
have a
Sarah.
nice evening.
Mr. Chairman? Sure. I see somebody here that may have left off non-capital report. Are you, I don't see you on the agenda, and I didn't put you on the agenda there a while ago. You're the area agency on aging, right?
Yes, sir. Oh, at the senior center, yes, sir.
So you're here at the senior center? I mean, is that?
I wasn't coming to speak. No,
Okay,
sir.
okay. I just knew you had an activity this Friday.
Yes, sir.
I didn't know if you'd make us aware of that activity.
I do. I sent emails to the board. We're having elder.
I saw that in her book.
Okay. We're having an elder abuse awareness night this Friday night, beginning at 4:30. We'll have a potluck dinner. The clients will be bringing side dishes and desserts. The senior center will provide the chicken, and that will begin at 4:30, and then at 6 o'clock we have a banner, and the elder clients that are there and anyone else that would like to participate, we're going to walk around the building several times to help bring awareness to elder abuse in general. And I have some information to share at that time. It's this Friday night.
Sorry, put you on the spot.
Oh,
I didn't know if you'd.
And I'll tell you, elder abuse is not necessarily hitting somebody.
No,
Elder
sir.
abuse mostly is financial.
It's emotional. One of the largest ones of all the emotional, physical, spiritual, financial abuse is the biggest abuse
It's huge.
that is imposed on our elders community.
I appreciate the work you do with the elders here in the community.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Not a problem. Patrick, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Welcome. My guest first is a contract to participate in the statewide enhanced primary care case management program.
It's a mouthful, isn't
That's
it?
right.
So you may remember, first before I begin, I would like to take a moment. I'm glad I put myself a note because I do forget these things. I want to take a moment to recognize DSS Board Chair Lisa Leatherman, who's come out tonight in support of the presentations that I'm giving this evening.
Lisa, you're a busy lady.
You want Lisa to do the presentation?
I'm pretty sure she'll defer to me to do that. But feel free to chime in at any point in time if you want to. You may remember that back in July of 2016, I came before you. At that point in time, CCWNC was asking us to request from the county commissioners approval for me to sign what at that time was known as a TECA agreement, Technology Enabled Care Coordination Agreement. That agreement allows foster care workers to go into Medicaid billing information, claims data, and see specific information related only to the foster children that we have the legal custody that's been granted through the court system, and to use that information to provide those foster children with a way to access medical services. So it's very specific in its use, it's very limited, and for that reason the CCWNC asked that DSS directors ask their county commissioners for permission to sign that document. I'm just talking with Jim with Public Health, and I guess Public Health has always had the ability to sign their own documents, but DSS, of course, has to, we're a little bit special in lots of ways, and so we have to ask for permission to do that. That document has been updated. It is now a three-party agreement between Division of Medical Assistance, CCNC, which is the larger organization, Community Care Network organization for North Carolina, and then the local department. And so because it's become a three-party agreement, it's changed just slightly in terms of who's signing it. After speaking with Chester, it was Chester's recommendation that out of an abundance of caution that I come before you tonight and ask permission to be able to sign this new agreement. Recognizing that if we're not able to sign this agreement, CCWNC will have no other option except to revoke our access to this data because it is a requirement for the for Division of Medical Assistance to have a signed agreement.
Get a motion to approve.
So moved, Mr. Chairman. Along with that, I believe it says in here that Macon County will correct all problems associated with NC tracks. Is that?
If it says that, I would ask the board to not.
In connection
I would
with
ask
the
you to
motion,
get us out of it as quick as
I
possible.
would ask that you include specific authorities for Patrick to execute that on behalf of the county.
I include that in my motion, Mr. Chairman.
Second. Got a second, all in favor? Aye. Patrick, second item.
Thank you.
Memorandum of Understanding with the State Department of Health and Human Services.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this one is is a document that arrives out of Session Law 2017-41, which amended North Carolina General Statute 108A-74. That statute requires all county departments of social services or consolidated human aid services agencies to enter into annual written agreements with HHS for all social services program areas except for Medicaid. Medical assistance determination is excluded as a result of pending transformation of Division of Medical Assistance. This document has been submitted to both the North Carolina County Commissioners Association as well as the County Departments of Social Services Association for feedback, and I believe we were able to provide feedback on 3 separate occasions. DHHS states that they've considered every single comment received in the development of this final draft. This MOU that I'm asking the board to consider it sets out certain performance measures, many of which are already required in writing, with prescribed action steps that are to be taken by both HHS and the DSS if the DSS fails to meet those performance measures for 3 consecutive months, or if it fails to meet any of the administrative requirements outlined in that MOU. I will take a moment just to note that we already have, as I mentioned, we already have many performance measures on all of our program areas, and those are regularly monitored. That monitoring oftentimes will result in some type of performance improvement plan, with the idea being that continuous quality improvement is something that departments of social services are familiar with and something that they work in regularly. We all have an opportunity to improve. The action steps begin with HHS. If corrective action is needed, those action steps begin with HHS providing consultation and technical assistance to help create some solutions to resolving those deficiencies. They could go as far as HHS taking action to withhold federal or state funding, or for HHS to assume control of a Department of Social Services, regrettably as what's occurred over in Cherokee County. If corrective action is issued by HHS, DSS and the county will have an opportunity to rebut the findings, as well as including any kind of concerns about Department of Health and Human Services failure to help the local county Department of Social Services meet its responsibility. I believe HHS is really taking this from the perspective of they recognize their oversight role in this, and that they are they're willing to stand to assist us and be as successful as we can be before going down this path of removing funding or ultimately assuming control. The performance measures have been developed, but it's important to note that those performance measures won't begin being graded, if you will, until January of 2019. I think HHS is asking for that time frame to validate those performance measures. And I was able to send I apologize that you didn't have it in advance of the meeting tonight, but I sent earlier not only the MOU, but those performance measures that are attached to that MOU. So at that point, with this, I'll ask if there's any questions that I can clarify. This is required under the new amended 108A-74. But I will ask, there's 2 questions related to this document. One, whether or not myself or the county manager should be the entity signing, and then who this commission would like to see receive notices related to any of the actions that might come out as a result of this MOU.
It'll be the county manager.
Okay. I'll make sure Derek's on there.
Commissioners, I would recommend that you authorize Patrick again to sign this document on behalf of the county, and to the extent that the state will allow, I think it would be appropriate for any notices that might be forthcoming under this memorandum of understanding, to the extent it's allowed by the state, that it be delivered to both our county manager and to Patrick.
Agreed. I figured it would go to him anyway.
And while this is a memorandum of understanding, and it generally requires the agreement of both parties, the state has already exercised your agreement authority and said you're going to sign it.
Okay. Sounds good. We get a motion to
And
approve.
we'll add this, that the only problem that the county commission had when they first associated had when they first came out was on the compensation side of it, with some definitions. there was some vague definitions there, Patrick, as you remember, and going, when you went through that is, there was some problems with some enrollment dates, and because it could become a big deal, and so I think that was all clarified. Met with the secretary 2 or 3 times, and so that was, finally got all that clarified, but it's if you're not read it, it's a difficult read at the best. And,
It is.
I have read it, and I think the shorthand statement, and Patrick, you correct me if you think I'm wrong, but what I see here is the state's basically saying county commissioners across the state, we've had some issues, and we want you to understand, because you don't deal with this every day, that if we don't operate our departments of social services well in our county, it could end up costing the county. That's the shorthand statement.
And that's where part of the problem came in with, you know, it could cost the county, but if the county's not, it started out, if it wasn't even at fault, it could cost the county. So some of that got changed around, and so.
I will say again, I think that one of the pieces that departments are now working very closely with HHS on is we've been given sort of the methodology behind how the measurements will be accounted for, and so we're going to spend quite a bit of time and hopefully have some good discussion with HHS about whether or not those methodologies are the most appropriate and the most accurate way to measure performance in certain areas. It seems like you would think that on its surface data is fairly easy to interpret and understand, but when you deal in the volume of data that we have for every single one of those program areas, it can get pretty convoluted pretty quickly. So hopefully we'll reach a good understanding of the methodology behind the performance measures.
And the pressure continues to increase on every DSS office, including ours in Macon County, not only for the services they provide, but the documentation they have to provide for those services is just, you can't make that.
But all 100 counties are having to do this.
Oh, I
not
know.
Just Macon County.
Oh, I
It's
know,
all 100 counties.
but all DSS offices are experiencing, and some of them they're not handling it so well as ours, thank goodness.
We'll take that as a motion to approve.
That's a motion to approve.
Mike, do you need a copy of the memo?
Get a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for your
Yes,
time
sir.
this evening.
Thank you. We're gonna skip B and go on. Just kidding. Just kidding.
Don't really care.
Presentation of 2019 schedule of values and establishment of public hearing date on the same. Tax Administrator, Mr. Richard Light.
This part here is the easiest part you'll have. Because all I have to do is show you this little book, and you got a PDF in your file. It's about 115 pages long, and it's 2 schedules actually. The main majority of it is about the revaluation of all property, but then in the back there is a schedule of value for the agriculture, horticulture, and forestry. So we do that for 2 reasons. When the public reviews it, if they appeal it, like happened in 1983, everything stops in the state. We will automatically go to Raleigh and have a hearing before tax commission if it's appealed. So you want 2 schedules. One's the agriculture use, and one is your regular schedule. This is my 6th official revaluation. That should have been my 8th, but we did one in 91 and 95. The board the board cut the 4-year cycle, which caused a lot of bad times for things because the board couldn't adjust values and the properties were increasing astronomically then. And then of course in 2007 we had one and should have had one in 2011, but that one we was started and we didn't have enough data, so we stopped that one. did 2015, now we're back on a 4-year schedule, 2019. The next one will be 2023. So what I present today, what 105-317 says, I have to present it to the board, which you have. We need to set a public hearing, and for us to stay on schedule, we need that public hearing to coincide with your public hearing next week, because ours shouldn't take, well, this is my 6th one, and I've never had anyone speak about the schedule values. So unless there's a rush on that, it will take about 10 minutes.
We're good with that. Chester? Mike, when we do our agenda next week, we'll just make sure that's first on the agenda. Okay.
So if that's okay, the next thing I have to do is publish in this coming Friday's paper that the public hearing is there, and it's already set up for that. Once we have the public hearing, then we have to advertise 4 weeks in a row that we've got the schedule out there for review. If anybody wants to appeal it, they have 30 days to appeal to the tax commission. So that's what all the ads say. So we will then come back, and we need to adopt the schedule of value at your next meeting, which would be August 10th.
The schedule of values are sort of like the foundation to the next reappraisal process.
Richard, are there any major changes?
I'm sorry, sir?
Are there any major changes from the one we did?
Not in the schedule. You know, the schedule's designed where it still allows the appraiser to make judgment calls. You know, the grade, the condition, and all that. You got ranges. If you're talking about the changes in what's going to happen, yeah, there are changes.
Sure. Now, I was just wondering if there's anything between this schedule of values and the one prior.
No, it's pretty standard from the last, since we started doing them in '91. And the state has, you got to follow IAAO standards, which you'll hear more about for your next reappraisal, which we will start in 2020. It'll be a full major enlist, so it's going to be much more complicated. But what you do is set up your schedule so they're flexible enough to allow for these different type of things. And it's worked pretty well. Where you get an infrequent request or something, if your schedule don't allow it, then you could run in some legal parameters that you'll have to argue in court. So, or you will be frozen to what your schedule says until the next revow. So this tells the person that we evaluated at this mechanism here, and that mechanism will not change until the next revow. So the greatest idea is if your property increases dramatically, you're frozen to what it was January 1 of next year. If it decreases, the bad thing is you're still in that same boat. Wildflower, a big decrease. Even though they may be selling it, say, $10,000 now, if they start selling at $1,000 next year, those lots were going to be valued at $10,000. So it protects the high and low, so we can't change the low or the high. So basically, that's what the schedule tells you. Good. So, board, all you have to do is just receive the schedule tonight, and we got the hearing for next week, and we will present it for adoption in July.
Thank you, Richard.
And this is my 6th and probably will be my final.
No.
I may work on some, but somebody else will talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
All right. Under new business, item C, North Carolina Weatherization Assistance Program, fiscal year 2019 allocation and application. Didn't see John here. You helping us?
Yeah, John just needs this application for funding for the WAP money and the HARP money approved for fiscal year 19. The amount that we're supposed to receive in the upcoming fiscal year is $113,572. And of course, there's no
Can we get a motion to approve?
match funds. So.
Motion to approve, Commissioner Gillespie.
Second.
Second by Shields. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item D, Macon County Public Health Lease Renewals Resolutions. Director Jim Bruckner. Welcome, Jim.
Good evening. The contract that Patrick talked about earlier, I've got one for Derek to sign too, that they sent me for the county to sign, separate of his and mine, which is kind of bizarre, but we shall see. Yeah, we have 4 resolutions that you have received from the county attorney, Mr. Jones. The first one is actually for the agency that Patrick signed that agreement with, which is Community Care Western North Carolina. We currently lease 4 cubicle spaces, that entity within the health department, and they service both us, DSS, and providers within the community. Do we have to do each one of these separate, Chester? Or?
I think if there's an inclination to approve them all, it would be fine to do them jointly, but if there's any question about any one of them being approved, they should be presented separately.
Your pleasure.
Motion to approve them.
You're the liaison, Mr. Chairman.
I'm good with it.
Okay, you good to go?
We got a motion to approve by Commissioner Bill, a second by Shields. Any questions?
Make it easy on me.
Any questions? All in favor? Aye.
Is that all 4? We're good, thank you. You guys have a great night.
Sorry you had to wait for you.
Mr. Cabe, Procession agreement regarding hazardous materials trailer. Welcome, Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In 2013, Macon County entered into an interlocal agreement with the town of Franklin to house and respond with a hazardous materials response trailer that Macon County purchased and equipped sometime around 2002 to 2003, don't remember the exact date. And we have received a notification that they would like to terminate that agreement. I believe Mr. Jones has the official legal
Under
process
the
followed.
terms of that agreement, they have the authority to end the agreement. I think it's appropriate in this situation to exercise that option if they choose to do that, and to end this by entering into a rescission agreement which memorializes that the parties are ending their obligations to one another under the terms of the agreement. I passed out a copy of that proposed document to each
Have
of
those
you.
changes that Mr. Henning requested.
Yes.
Good.
I do want
There wasn't a reason stated in the letter that we received.
It's not a problem on our end, though, to accept it, use it, so.
Prior to that,
Especially with the task force, so.
Prior to that, the emergency management staff would respond with the trailer and take the stuff to the fire department, so we'll revert back to that until we come up with a better option.
you still have access to it, Warren?
Yes, and we actually, the way the agreement was structured, if they were not able to respond, then our staff would go to their facility and get it from their facility, or one of the fire departments would go get it. So there's, other than it changing locations, there's not a
Yeah,
lot of
that's
difference.
about the only real change is the location.
Need a motion to approve the rescission agreement? Some waiting, Mike. Got a motion by Commissioner Gillespie. Need a second? Gentlemen? Second by Shields. Thank you, Gary. All in favor? Aye. Thanks, Warren.
Thank you, Warren.
Occupancy tax service contract with the Highlands Chamber of Commerce. That'll be Lori helping us with that one.
Not sure where that came from.
You want to,
Lori
Mike?
County Attorney, is that not a meeting to be postponed all the council do?
The Holland Chamber of Commerce, I'm not familiar with that contract.
Yeah,
You got that covered, Chester?
I can. As you know, we have an occupancy tax here in Macon County, and historically, the county has contracted with both the Highlands Chamber as well as the Franklin Chamber to help and assist the county in promoting Macon County, which is the required use of that occupancy tax. Both of those agreements, the one with the Franklin Chamber of Commerce as well as the agreement with the Highland Chamber, expire at the end of this month. That came to my attention, and I thought it might need to be discussed this evening and get some direction so that we can get an agreement to replace these ready to go next Tuesday night, if that is the board's will.
I think we should.
I will have those
knocking it out of the
prepared for-
ballpark right now with the efforts with the TDC funds. So.
Be happy to get those together.
Everybody else good with that? Good.
Does the board have any instructions for any changes, or would you just like to see my draft?
Yeah, I would think the
And
same
we'll
one would
address
be
that
sufficient,
Tuesday?
Yeah. Thank you, Chester. Fireworks permit for Nantahala Volunteer Fire and Rescue.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, and a second, all in favor? Fireworks permit for Franklin Chamber of Commerce. Is that one still on? It says tentative.
We did get the paperwork, we
Good to go. Okay.
Make
Motion
most be
approved.
accepted as presented.
We've got a second by Commissioner Shields, motion by Commissioner Gillespie, all in favor? Aye. Last item, item GI, aye. I had an email from Karen Wallace today. I'm just going to read it. It says, the library has been working on improving Wi-Fi internet speeds in all of our locations. It's been particularly challenging in Nantahala and in Highlands. One of our vendors, Boston West, now has a higher speed option that they could offer to our libraries in Nantahala and in Highlands. Unfortunately, this new option wasn't available until after the E-rate discount filing was completed for the upcoming fiscal year. The E-rate program discounts make high-speed internet affordable for our libraries. I'd like to make a one-time request. Let me mention that one-time again, request to the county to support the installation and delivery of the improved higher-speed internet at the Nantahala Community Library and the Hudson Library. For approximately $5,000, we would be able to install and operate the Wi-Fi networks at both libraries. This would more than double the Wi-Fi speed at Hudson Library in Highlands, and it would be about 7 times faster in Nantahala. These upgrades would make a large difference to the people in these two communities for a relatively small investment. My thought on it, the reason I hurried this through tonight, I got this at 2:59 p.m. today, is I thought, since this was our last June meeting, is that we might put it through for some out of our contingency funds from this year versus trying to work that into our budget for next year, presuming you gentlemen would like to move forward with that. So.
Can you give us your take on that?
Well, I guess my.
And if we want to put this up till next week, we can too. If we need
I'd like to have some details. What's included in the $5,000? Boston West has already got fiber to both of these facilities, so are we talking about increasing the bandwidth to the facility, or are we talking about changing out APs in the building?
It doesn't say. Let me just have her, I'll have her come next Tuesday. We'll take it at.
Is
we'll
she
take
on
it
a
at that time,
timeline
so.
for interviews? Do you know?
No, but she, like I say, she was asking for it for next year, but I knew we had some contingency funds left for this year, so
The
I
thing
thought it might be
is,
good to go ahead and pull them, so.
it affects my year-end ordinance that
For
you're
next-
approving tonight. If you give her money out of contingency, then my
Good
ordinance
point.
is out of balance.
Good point.
So,
If you wanted to recommend her to reach out to me, I'd be more than happy to work with her on the details.
So
All
can
right,
we
how
go ahead
do
and,
that? 'Cause she's needing that before next Tuesday for her.
I mean, is that $2,500 per, is that $2,500 per library, you think, or do we know that, or why ain't she here?
So, well, I just got it, and she didn't know we were gonna be bringing it up, so.
I mean, $5,000, if it doubles it and increases it 7 times,
That's the first I've heard of any of that. I mean, we've talked
I don't know what she's talking about. I'm like Carl, I don't,
So
Carl.
I just got this today, and I just figured I'd bring it through, because I thought we'd run it through, so.
And she was there, so I don't know, this is all new to me.
I don't know. But if it, what could that
We
be,
can wait till
Carl? I
next
mean,
year,
there's
so.
fiber at Hudson.
When did she
Is it a
need her
booster of some
decision?
type?
She asked for it for next year. I just pushed it through. I got it today thinking that we had some contingency funds left to this year, and we would use those. It's
It'd
such
be a whole lot
minimal
simpler to
amount,
use
so.
it out of this year's budget if we know what we're doing.
Could she come next Tuesday?
But
She
it
could, but
hit
it messes
Lori
up her,
up,
messes
see?
up her
well, you can
budget
approve my
ordinance, so.
amendment tonight, but if you do that next week, we're gonna have to do another amendment.
Right.
That's what it, I mean, it can be
We
done.
can
It
wait
can be
till,
done.
we can wait till the next fiscal year too, and we'll do that contingency, so.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I don't know what to, you'd be the one that have to explain.
There's not enough detail to make a
I
decision.
don't know what that would be, a booster or
Well,
something?
she could come next Tuesday. You could make the presentation, and then you could decide whether you wanna do it in this year's budget or next year's. At least you'll have the information.
Just
make the
come, or you just
decision.
have to do another amendment, that's
Yeah,
the only
like I
problem
said,
with
I
that.
just,
Or either carry it over.
I'd rather get it approved tonight so I can get it posted if possible. Cause it's a,
I'd be more than happy.
like I said, we could amend it again next
Mr.
week.
Gillespie should have a smell test here.
Well, with that, are we okay to approve it with the contingency that Commissioner Gillespie's happy with our explanation?
And if he's not happy,
If he's not happy, I'm not sure.
If he's not happy, then we just don't
Well, do
disperse
you
it.
know what,
We just
what
don't
obligation?
Don't write the check.
Don't disperse the
check.
funds.
Don't write the
Do you
check.
know what the obligation is that you're approving?
Send an email.
It says it's a one-time request, so I'm thinking that it's probably for some of
A piece of equipment?
She mentions the E-rate program too. Let's just hold on. It's just $5,000. We can do it out of next year's contingency. That's fine. Okay.
But I still think Mr. Gillespie needs to
Oh, he said he's going to.
If you don't mind.
be on the
Thank you.
smell test.
Thank you. All right, we'll take no action on that. Item 12, consent agenda, including the additions that Lori gave us earlier tonight. Can we get a motion to approve? If there's something that anyone of you would like removed or to discuss, we'll be happy to do so.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented, Mr. Chairman.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Good. I don't think we have any appointments tonight. I do know that we do have a reason for closed session regarding the acquisition of real property, and I expect no action regarding that. So,
But we do need to let the public and media know that we anticipate recessing this meeting to Tuesday, June 19th,
right here.
6 p.m. here
So
in
we will
the,
come out of closed session, recess this meeting until next Tuesday, the 19th, at 6 p.m. right here at 5 West Main Street. And we're going to be discussing the 2018-19 budgets, as well as just a few items of business that was left over from tonight.